this is Fatima, and today we're going to talk about ESL and modals. Modals are helping types of words like can, may, might with the base form of the verb in present and future, but we're also going to look at past modals. Modals first in present and future forms. We use time words with them because it is modal and base form of the verb. Like I can help you now, I can help you tomorrow, I can help you next week. There's always exceptions in English. Again, be able to is one that you could put in past, present, or future. You would conjugate the verb to be. So I am able to help you today. I'm going to be able to help you tomorrow. Could is one that's also an exception. It's either for I could help you, it can mean ability, or it can be I could ride a bike when I was little. I couldn't ride a bike when I was little. So it can be a long action in the affirmative or negative, or following the formula of could in base form, it can be a one-time and negative action in the past, like I couldn't get tickets last night. So what you really want to think about is there's going to be a lot of exceptions in modals, but you really want to compartmentalize. And this first compartment is the compartment of ability. So the three types of modals is can, could, and the phrasal modal be able to. Could, again, can be used in the past as long as it's a long action in the negative or affirmative, or it is a short action in the negative. The next one is request, and of course, because it is a request, you would invert the subject and the modal. So, can I help you? Can you help me? Would you help me? Could you help me? And in English, we don't have really a formal and informal, but could is a little bit more distant. Oftentimes, we also use would, and would tends to be a little more polite, and we use it with an expression, would you mind? Would you mind helping me? Would you mind passing me the paper? We use it with a gerund. Would is a preference. And these three phrases, would like, would prefer, and would rather, all mean preference. After these, you could put two nouns or a noun. Would you like Coke or Pepsi? Would you prefer popcorn or pizza? Would you rather movies or TV shows? But when we want to put a verb after, it changes a little bit. One of these is different. So would you like to eat pizza or fried chicken? Would you prefer to eat chicken or pizza or fried chicken? Would you rather eat pizza or fried chicken? So here, would you rather eat? After this phrase, you would want to use a base form and not the infinitive, like would prefer to stay home, would like to stay home, I would rather stay home. The next compartment is possibility. And possibility, I like to look at it like a stairway. And if you were to draw a stairway on a blackboard, could is at the very bottom, may and might is in the middle, and will is at the top. Of course, we're talking about present and future modals. Will obviously is the highest. It's also only used for future. Think about it, it's the future possibility at 99%. Like you're promising, but things happen. Who knows? So there is a 1% chance maybe it doesn't happen. May and might are interchangeable, but remember that may here is the modal. So I may help you later, or I may be there later. It shows 50%. Don't confuse that, however, with maybe the adverb. So if you put maybe and then put will, it's kind of cross-canceling each other out. Maybe I will be there. It's really showing uncertainty of a promise. Here, it may be more it may be clearer if you just use may be. I may be there later. But notice there is a space because this is an actual modal and base form of the verb. It is not the adverb where it looks similar, but it's all put together. And it goes in a different part. Maybe the adverb doesn't come right after the subject. Necessity has have to and have got to. In English, a lot of times you hear it as have to, I have to go, or I've got to go. Must is like a rule and there's no choice. Like you must brush your teeth every night to avoid cavities. You must do your homework to pass the class. But have to and have got to are more just necessity. I have to go home to feed the dog, or I've got to do my homework, before I go to bed tonight. So a lot of times have to and have got to just mean necessity. The other thing is they follow a normal rule pattern. So if you put this in present or even in past, because they have that exception, you would need auxiliaries and negatives and questions. Like I didn't have to do homework last night. Do you have to do homework tonight? Does she have to go to the auto body shop? So here, have to would follow rules of auxiliaries, helping verbs in order for it to make sense for questions and for negatives. But have to and have got to are necessity. They're called phrasal modals because they're a group of words. You can also combine. So you can put may and might with be able to. You can also put may and might with have to. And all you're doing is joining the compartments. So it's possibility with ability or possibility with necessity. I may be able to fix your car, or I might have to babysit my sister this weekend. So again, you can combine them. Notice also again the twos. So before in present and future modals, it's modal and base form of the verb. There's these exceptions where you have the to. Another two is ought to. But should and ought to both mean advice. Ought to, in American English, we slang it so it sounds like oughta. So we really ought to go, or we really ought to hurry up so we don't miss that movie, or we should hurry up so we don't miss the movie. But should and ought to are interchangeable. We use them both the same. I have a lot of students tell me, well, I don't really hear ought to very much. That's not true. Ought to is used just as much. They probably just don't notice it. And ought to is like I said, more slanged. But they both mean advice. You should call your mom. You ought to call your mom. Warning is a stronger compartment. Had better. And had better looks like it's in the past. You need to remember that that's just an expression. It's not in the past. We a lot of times contract it so it becomes you'd better. And really you don't even hear the D. So it becomes more like you better. In addition, we have must. Like you must stop at the stop sign. This is like that really strong necessity where there's no choice and it's a rule. Same thing, same idea. It just overlaps a little bit where this is a warning. So you must stop at the stop sign or you'll get a ticket. You must slow down or you're going to get a ticket. It's usually when something bad is going to happen. You'd better bring an umbrella or you're going to get wet. You'd better study or you're going to fail. You'd better go to bed or you're going to get in trouble by your parents or you're going to be tired the next morning. So had better and must are warnings. Would is like the alternate universe, or it can be used as the alternate universe of will. It's really part of a conditional, the if clauses of real and unreal conditions. But I like to tell my students it's like Spider-Man, the two different movies of a decade between each other, where there was one lifeline of Spider-Man and story, and then there was another one years later. Would has that same feeling. For example, the real condition, if I have money, I'm going to buy a car, is different than the imaginary. If I had money, I would buy a car. It would be almost like if I made different choices in the past and I would have a different outcome for my future. And that brings us to conditionals. And I have a whole nother lecture on conditionals, but conditionals can be real and unreal in past and present. Here's one example of a real present. If I have time, I watch Netflix. That's a condition. Every single time, a repetition. Real future, if I have money, notice the dependent clause is simple present. I'm going to go to the movies. This is the main clause, or the independent clause is the future clause. The unreal, this is where you see the would, or the modal would. If I had money, I would buy a big screen TV. So it's not real. I don't have money, and so I'm not going to buy a big screen TV. The unreal past is a little trickier in the formula because you're using past perfect. If I had seen it, I would have known about it. And notice here you're using the past modal, and we will look at this formula in a minute. But again, it's connecting, it shows two unreal conditions in the past. They didn't see the movie and they didn't know about it. The last modal we're going to look at is must. It doesn't say it on here, but this is the compartment of drawing a conclusion. So we looked at compartments of ability and possibility, and here we're looking at the compartment of drawing a conclusion. Some textbooks will tell you it's like making an assumption or coming to a conclusion about something you don't know. It's when you see things and you make an observation. Like, oh, and this particular picture, this woman is smoking and drinking. So she must be over 21, or she must be over 18 in the United States to be able to smoke, or she must be over 21 in the United States to be able to drink. But this must is not used as the law. We're just making that assumption that she is in fact over 21. If I saw someone driving and it was a short person, maybe it is, and they looked very, very young, I could say, oh, well, maybe, it's a high school student. They must be 16 though, because, they are driving. They must have their license. So again, I'm not using it as a law. I'm just drawing that conclusion from my own, from my own knowledge. So now let's take a look at the same compartments, but with past modals. So past modals have a similar meaning with ability and possibility and advice, although advice changes a little bit. So here's the past modal formula. It's modal plus base form of have and past participle. Remember, your past participles are ed. And now I look at this and I think, wow, this looks a little bit like the perfect verb tenses in English. But it's not, because it's not present perfect, because present perfect you would conjugate the verb to have. You don't do this here. This is the base form of the have. It's part of the infinitive. So I may have gone. I might have gone. I could have gone. He could have gone. They could have gone. So you're using the base form of have. You're not conjugating it in the past or present. You're not using has. You're using have and then the past participle. Remember, past participle, regular ones are ed, or it's that third column of irregular verbs. So here we go with some past modal sentences. Past ability, the true past ability, remember there was an exception with could. However, the true past ability is, oh, I could have gone or I couldn't have gone. We don't use can in the past. We can also use was able to. I was able to change the oil in the car last night. I was able to see the movie yesterday. Past possibility, this one is used often. We usually use may or might because it's 50%. I might have left my phone on the counter. I may have lost my keys. So it's showing a possibility that happened in the past. It's like trying to remember something. Past necessity, remember it's have to and have got to. Have got to does not go in the past. Have to just takes on like a regular verb, so had to or didn't have to. Past advice is a little different. If you think about should, ought to follows the same rule too. It doesn't change. I ought to have gone. You would use base form of have and past participle. But past advice, think about advice. When your mom tells you to do something or your dad tells you to do something and you don't do it. What happens? Normally, you get into trouble or something bad happens. That's what happens here. So it's basically like a mistake. It's a regret. I should have gone to bed earlier. Now I'm tired. I should have studied harder. Ugh, I failed. I should have apologized earlier. I should have called you. All of these things are regrets. They are advice not taken. Lastly, drawing a conclusion in the past. Now remember the woman that was smoking and drinking? Well, we used must, right? So drawing a conclusion in the past is the same. It's modal, base form of have, and past participle. So where did all these people go? They must have gone. They must have gone home. They must have finished filming. So remember, in conclusion, modals isn't so much the complication of present and future modals, the formula with modal and base form, but it's the compartments that they go into. Also, with past modals, just remember the formula changes. So you need modal, base form of have, and past participle. Until next time, thanks again for listening and please subscribe. Have a great day and happy studying English.